Again, today's topic, we're going to recap our report to the community, which we held last week, Thursday, right about this time. We were getting started. So some of you guys came, some of you guys couldn't make it, and we're glad that you're here to share in this report. Our annual report to the community is really just a time that we can take to reflect on the previous year, our successes, our challenges, and share some of our goals going forward. So that's what we're going to be doing today. Part of the annual report, or the report to the community, of course, is our annual report, which is available. Some of you guys may have received that in the mail. If you didn't, you can download it online. So we'll see if this works. Oh, I love it when things work. So right now you guys should all be seeing a copy of my screen. This is our Pillars website, pillarsinc.com. To find it, you go to the About tab here at the top, come down to Documents. And then right here at the top where it says Annual Reports, the 2023 Annual Report, right here. So you can download your very own copy of the annual report. So we hope that you'll choose to do that. If you'd rather have a printed version, please just reach out to us. You can reach out to me at the events at Pillars Inc. email or reply to any of the emails I sent about conversations over coffee. And hopefully we can just get you set up with a copy of that annual report if you'd like a paper printed one. We do have those as well. All right, so let's get started and jump in. I'd like to introduce our executive director, Lisa Strandberg, who many of you guys do already know. And Lisa is going to take us through a little bit of reflection on the year that we've just had, as well as some goals for our year ahead. So Lisa, I'm turning it over to you.
Thanks, Stephanie. Great to be here this morning. Great to see what all of you are sipping. Some pretty delicious stuff out there. Also great to see there's at least one eclipse enthusiast in the group. I saw a little icon with the eclipse, so looking forward to that on April 8th. Really grateful that you made time to be here with us this morning. I know that all of you invest in Pillars in different ways. You know, your donors, your funders, your community partners, your volunteers, your board members, your staff. The order of the day, the order of business for us as we share the year gone by and the year ahead really is to energize you again around our mission and to be energized by you. So if you've been to conversations before, you know that it's all about questions and we will leave ample time for that. So make a note in the chat, make a note on a piece of paper. We'll have time to answer questions that we leave unanswered at some point in the morning. And just really thanks for being part of our mission to provide shelter support and solutions to address housing needs here in the Fox Cities. So we've got, as I said, a few different folks present this morning. A couple of our board members who weren't able to make it last week. And I just want to acknowledge the board and you see who they are, what their affiliations are here on screen. And during a time of really challenging staff turnover, I know that's been true for plenty of organizations. It's been especially true for those with essential workers through COVID who provide frontline service. Through that time of a lot of staff turnover, these board members really have been a stabilizing and steady presence for us here at Pillars. I also want to acknowledge our staff. You'd have to work pretty hard to convince me that there are a group of 60 more creative and compassionate folks in the Fox Cities. I see all of these people as heroes. They wear capes to work every day in my eyes, and they really respect and empower the folks that we serve, and they respect and empower each other. And I thank my lucky stars every day that they come to work here at Pillars. Our volunteers are truly an extension of our staff, and that's been even more true in the year gone by. You'll hear more about that later. But collectively, our volunteers give somewhere upwards of 17,000 hours a year in support of our clients, our program participants, and our tenants. And that amounts to about $500,000 worth of time and care and generosity. And I hope if you have volunteered with Pillars, you will indicate that in the chat or in some way let us know that you've been involved as a volunteer in any way, shape, or form. It really does take all of us being creative and compassionate together to provide shelter support and solutions here in the Fox Cities. I want to take some time this morning to let you know how effective you've been as you participate in that mission in the past year and what's coming in the year ahead in 2024. So this Pillars at a Glance graphic is one of our very favorites. It really lays out the full sweep of how we provide shelter support and solutions. It's worth remembering that while this looks like a line, people enter and exit our services all along this spectrum. The process of working through housing instability is not linear. And we design this spectrum of services to welcome folks in wherever they need us, wherever they first meet us. And the beauty of it is that we then build a team of cheerleaders around the folks that we serve. So no matter where they enter, no matter how they move along this spectrum, they've got folks around them to cheer them on. I want to acknowledge 7 key people who really drive the work involved in providing that spectrum of services and ensuring that we deliver the services with skill and care. This is my team. This is the extended leadership team here at Pillars, and these are the people I lean on and who lean on me to empower and energize the Pillars team. So take a good look at these folks. They're awesome. I hope that you have a chance to cross paths with them in one way or another. They've been instrumental in the 4 significant achievements from the year gone by that I'm going to touch on this morning. And those achievements are shifting the dialogue around who the issue of homelessness belongs to, engaging stakeholders in resolving our structural deficit, increasing shelter capacity and weekend access through a couple of programs that I'll touch on in a bit, and then seeing folks graduate from our stable housing program. And I'm going to touch on these one by one, starting with the most important one in my mind, which is really shifting the community dialogue around who owns homelessness. And spoiler alert, we all do. That's the short answer. If you attended last year's report to the community, or if you attended last year's Conversations Over Coffee recap of the report to the community, you heard us talk about a change to our vision statement. It was a small change, really, just a handful of words, but it has made a difference in how we do what we do. And when I say we, how we do what we do, I really mean the big we. I don't mean the Pillars we, I mean the big we, all of us. Shifting our language from thinking about leading our community to seeing a creative, compassionate community all around us has really brought a real change in just a year's time. We've seen a difference in our relationships with leaders in and around downtown Appleton in particular, that those relationships have sometimes had a touch of animosity or adversarialism about them, and we've really taken a more collective and resource sharing approach to how we do our work. We hope to replicate that with other municipalities in and around the Fox Cities. So been really stirred and moved in particular by some strategic restructuring within the city of Appleton that has helped to advance our vision. The city has been really thoughtful about hiring and placing staff members and putting the right folks in close contact with those doing the day-to-day work of addressing housing challenges and homelessness. And they continue to be thoughtful in their work around how they place folks in the city org chart. The city soon will be adding another position poised to navigate challenging and critical collaboration around housing. And their efforts at sort of coalition building, that's what we have dreamed of when we adapted our vision statement. And we see that manifesting in tangible ways. So I've talked a little bit about civic leaders and how civic leaders have helped us achieve that shift in vision. Faith leaders have also been pivotal in that shift. We have seen more and more faith communities in the last year become members of the Fox Cities Housing Coalition. And what's really heartening is that those faith leaders and faith communities really do see and understand themselves as part of the system of care in serving people in homeless experiences. And to see faith communities engaging with each other, with pillars, and with other service providers is really pretty amazing. And if you are here because of your membership in a faith community, would love to hear about that in the chat as well. At the event last week, we had all of those faith leaders stand up. So calling yourself out in the chat is your way of standing up this morning. So really grateful that our faith communities see themselves as a relevant and powerful asset in this work, because they certainly are. I just want to underscore that our vision of a creative and compassionate community that collaborates around the issue of homelessness matters, and why it matters. It matters because we really have a lot of work to do. We need all of us doing it. I hope that many of you are familiar with the point in time count. We do a point in time count twice a year, and housing coalitions all across the country do a point in time count twice a year because the government asks us to. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development funds a lot of organizations like Pillars and asks coalitions all across the country, to which we belong, to quantify, to put scale and scope on the challenges of homelessness in the community. So we go out in the middle of the night. We find folks where they are between the hours of 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. and we connect with them and aim to connect them to services. That's really the point of the point in time count. Figures from our point in time counts this past July and just a couple of months ago in January have shown a 70%, roughly 70% increase during both counts in 1 year's time of folks living unsheltered in our communities. And I say communities broadly because our point in time count covers Appleton, it covers Neenah Menasha. We've added a route in Neenah Menasha because of rising numbers of unsheltered folks in those communities. We cover Kaukauna and Little Chute as best we can with a group of 40 volunteers. So really looking across the Fox cities and seeing those numbers rise. In this increase, a couple of populations have been disproportionately affected by rising homelessness. First, family homelessness is rising faster than homelessness among other households. What you're seeing on screen now is data from what we call the list, the coordinated entry list. I'm going to try to describe coordinated entry as briefly as I can. It is a shared system that prioritizes folks for housing programming and housing opportunities based on their vulnerability. So the gray bars, the height of the bar indicates the number of households on the Fox Cities Housing Coalition's list to prioritize for housing. The blue segment, the blue portion of that bar indicates the number of those households that have children. And you can see that the absolute number of households on the list has gone up steadily over the past few years. You can also see that the percentage of those households that have children has increased as well. So a larger share of those households are households with kids. And data from our friends at the Appleton Area School District backs this up. So the school district looks at and counts homeless experiences a little bit differently than we do using the coordinated entry list, but they're seeing the exactly the same trend. They have seen their numbers rise from about 300 to about 500 in the last academic year. And in this academic year, they reached that 500 mark already as of March 1st. So the school district may see 600, 700 students by the end of the academic year. We don't know yet, but it's troubling. It's a troubling trend and one that we all need to work on together. The other troubling trend that we've seen is an increase in homelessness among the elderly. So for folks aged 62 plus, in 2 years' time, we at Pillars saw a 150% increase in the number of those folks served in our 2 shelters. Fortunately, it's held steady from 2022 to 23. It hasn't continued to rise, but there was a sharp increase in just 2 years' time. And the story that we hear pretty repeatedly here when folks call in looking for support is, I've been living in the same, I'm 70 something years old. I've been living in the same rental unit for 20 years. And I just learned that my landlord, my mom and pop landlord, sold their property to a management company. And my rent's going to go up $300, $400 a month, and I can't afford it. So that's been a trend that's been pretty distressing for us and is putting extra pressure on all service providers. At the same time that the level of need for homelessness and housing services is on the rise here, you may have heard, are working to overcome a structural deficit. So if you were with us last year at our report to the community or at our conversations recap, you heard me talk about this a bit. We got to this place not through reckless spending, not through carelessness, but rather because we've made a commitment to paying our staff more fairly. And I want to emphasize that I use the word more fairly, not fully fairly. I'll get to that later. We also, over the years, have launched really necessary programming, vital programming with startup grant funding that has since run out. So working to fill a couple of holes in our budget. And that leads to our next achievement, which you see highlighted on screen. We've made headway in bringing our financial challenges to light in a way that's really meant to inspire and engage the community to invest more deeply in the critical work that we do. We shared this need with Kurt Dachin, the CEO of the Community Foundation, last fall, and he put it pretty eloquently after we told him about where we were at. The community will be surprised to hear this. You have toiled quietly, is what I remember him saying. It might seem disorienting for you. It has been disorienting for me to think of an organization sort of airing its financial challenges as an achievement. But I've really come around to that point of view because if you hang with me, I hope you'll come around to that point of view too. Shifting our vision statement, sharing our financial struggles, those really work hand in hand. We have toiled quietly, as Kurt put it, and we just can't do that anymore. The challenge is too big. It's growing too fast, and addressing it is too important. We really need for our community to commit and to invest in addressing the needs, and the community won't know that unless we let the community know. So, and when I say we need to let our community know, I'm using that big we. Again, it's not just the Pillars we, but it's all of us getting behind the idea that it's an achievement to be honest about what it takes to do this work, to pay the folks who do it in a way that doesn't leave them housing insecure, which I will touch on a bit later, because that too is a reality, and it's one that I regularly lose sleep over. Our frontline workers in this very difficult work deserve better, and it's really, I see it as my job to fight for them until they get it. So our third achievement in the year gone by was sustaining our winter shelter overflow program and our 7-day service program. Both of these programs have been funded for 2 years by the city of Appleton, and they are funded through this fiscal year. So today is April 4th, and our winter shelter overflow program runs through April 15th. The 7-day service program will run all the way through the end of September, and then that money will run out. So each of these programs I want to touch on in turn. The overflow program is really about expanding shelter capacity during our winter months when living unsheltered is, of course, dangerous and even life-threatening. So Pillars in the City of Appleton found this creative solution to keep more folks, including families, safer from October 15th to April 15th. We are able to expand by about 20 beds a night, which has been really helpful in keeping our wait lists a little bit shorter and getting people access to shelter a little bit quicker. For what it's worth, when I have the opportunity, I like to share this because we sometimes hear from our community that our wait lists are months long, and our wait lists are lengthy. That is true. But we hear from our community that it takes months to get into shelter, and I want to emphasize that that's not the case. For an individual, it's typically about 2 weeks from the time they get on the wait list until the time they get a bed. And for a family, it can be a little bit longer because we do house families together in a room, and it takes time for the right configuration to be available. But for families, it's typically 3 to 4 weeks. So that's worth sharing, and that's worth your knowing. So I talked about winter shelter overflow. I want to touch too on the 7-day service program. You may be aware that our adult shelter, which you're seeing here on screen, is open nighttime only, so from 4:30 until 8 a.m. Our resource center is open from 8:30 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon, so there's a little half-hour gap at either end. So weekdays, Monday through Friday, folks had somewhere to be, somewhere safe and out of the elements to be. But on weekends, not the case. And we really wanted to bridge that gap. And the City of Appleton came alongside us to help us do so. So on weekends, we are now able to keep our adult shelter open 24 hours a day. And this is all through the calendar year. And that gives our adult shelter clients a safe place to be. It gives them a productive place to be. It helps them keep progressing on their goals. And that program, as I said, is running all through the calendar year through the end of this fiscal year. But our challenge is that we need to find a way to continue these vital programs in the face of a deficit beyond this fiscal year when that COVID funding that we received through the City of Appleton runs out. Takes about $130,000 a year to run these two programs. And without incremental support, we will be scratching our heads wondering how to sustain them. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's looking ahead to the year ahead. And before I go there, I've got one more achievement that I want to talk about. And that is graduations that we've seen from our stable housing program. We all know that wages have been rising with inflation. And we've seen, as a result of this, some positive progress for some of our stable housing tenants. In our stable housing program, we have 140 households living with us. That doesn't mean 140 houses, because we've got some folks who live 5 to a house. They each have their own bedroom. We have a separate lease with each of them. But at any rate, 140 tenants who we charge rent that scales according to their income. So their rent is 30% of their household income, no matter how much that income is. What the sliding scale does is ensure that those households can afford all of their other needs. They can afford education, they can afford healthcare, they can afford food, they can afford what they need. When a household's income increases to the point that their rent with Pillars exceeds what they might pay on the open market, then those tenants move on and they make space for someone else who needs that rent adjustment. And that adjustment is a cost that Pillars basically absorbs to the tune of generally about $600,000 a year. We have seen many more of these stable housing graduations this year. You're looking at one of the fellows who benefited from this program. This is really good news for our tenants. It means for them that they have gotten to that point of self-sufficiency. They're more stable given their income level. What it means for us as an organization, though, is that a tenant who now can afford market rate rent likely will be replaced by a tenant who is at the very low or extremely low end of the income range, which means that our bottom line actually suffers rather than benefits. And It's kind of an upside down business model if you think about it, but it's the one that we're proud to run because it's what we're here to do. That leads me to looking ahead. I want to touch on, again, 4 themes as I do. Our most pressing challenge in the near term, as well as for the next couple of years, is really to resolve our structural deficit while we pay our staff fairly. We've made some stepwise progress on this goal over the past year, and we have an amazing opportunity right now to build our fundraising capacity for the future to help us with this deficit. So last fall, we brought a number of stakeholders together to share our financial challenges, to talk about the increased need that you heard about, and to talk about the insufficient funding to meet that need. A lot has happened since last fall when we had that conversation, including a really, really exciting $150,000 matching gift that we are in the process of fulfilling right now. So this gift has really it's really put wind in our sails as an organization. It's given us some energy, some confidence. This gift came from a longtime friend of the organization, and that friend wants to remain anonymous, but said to me that he really believes in the mission, and he really believes in the people behind the mission. And that is really, fundraising just doesn't get any better than that when everybody feels good about it. So he's super excited to have been able to do this for the organization, for the community. And I hope you're excited too. We are. We focus this initiative on supporting our resource center. The resource center, as I mentioned, operates during daytime hours, Monday through Friday, and it currently is underfunded by about $150,000 a year, coincidentally. The resource centers really felt the effects of the increasing number of folks in homeless experiences. We've seen a 40% increase in 1 year's time in the number of visits to the resource center. Whenever I back up to that picture, if you would, for just a minute, because I can't resist pointing out and underscoring the increase in homelessness among elderly folks. If you take a look at this picture, you see a number of walkers, folks with walkers in the picture, and that just underscores the trends that we've been seeing. Our average daily visits, as I mentioned, has been on the rise. What you see in this image in blue is the average number of folks we've seen per day. And in orange is the highest number of folks we've seen in a given day in a given month. So as many as 80, 82 people in and out of our resource center on a single day. When we launched the resource center back in 2018, we imagined 10 to 15 people. And we're seeing upwards of 50 or 60 typically, and even 80 on peak days. So it has really provided a vital service. It's an unduplicated service. We've had some conversations in the community about whether we might be overlapping with other community centers, with other access to resources that's out there. And our partners agree that this really is an unduplicated service. It's necessary, it's vital, and that's why we're focusing on it with our matching gift. So we hope that you will spread the word about this opportunity, that you'll help us get the word out. And boy, isn't that handy? Someone's just put a link in the chat to let you know how you can do that. So magic. Feel free to share that link far and wide and to let folks know. We are about halfway, blessedly, through that matching opportunity, but the second half is the hardest half. So we do appreciate your help in spreading the word. When you do, you'll be supporting our next goal for the year ahead, which is really to continue increasing our community's embrace of our new vision statement around a creative, compassionate community that collaborates, that owns homelessness together. And I really ask each one of you today, because you're here today, you are part of that community, that creative, compassionate community that we're working to build. And please see yourself as that, and please congratulate yourself for that, because it really matters. Next on the list of things to accomplish in the year ahead is unity around pillars, direction, and needs. So we've been working to get our board and our staff singing off the same song sheet, and that requires a shared score. And we've been working to develop a simple, meaningful quarterly dashboard. We've set a goal that by year end 2024, we will have that simple, meaningful quarterly dashboard developed. What we hope is that everyone inside and outside pillars using that dashboard will have a sense of where we've been, where we're going, how we're doing versus targets that we've set, how we're trending versus past quarters. We'll have a clearer sense of next steps as a result of that. Those next steps might be internal improvements. They might be advocating for change in the community, but neither of those things is really possible until we're clear about where we stand. So I want to underscore that we have plenty of data. Like, there is tons and tons and tons of data available to us. We use a statewide homeless management information system. We could share data till the cows come home, but that data needs to tell the right story to empower and inspire our staff and to motivate the community to invest. And that's the data that we're aiming to really capture, encapsulate, and be clear and concise in communicating in a way that's actionable. So fingers crossed that when you come back next year, what you'll see on screen is that dashboard, and we'll be able to share that with you. And then our most important goal I saved for last. So lots of things that we covered are very important, but the most important goal to me is that we stabilize and strengthen our team and engage our staff more deeply. I cannot say enough about the staff. I did it at the top of the presentation. I'm going to do it again. There are many people in the world who would prefer to turn their gaze away from homelessness, and in fact do. And these are not those people. Our team looks people in homeless experiences right in the eye every day, and they do it with warmth, and they do it with care, they do it with compassion. They walk alongside them. It sounds easy, it sounds simple, and it is the furthest thing from easy and simple. It is really a radical act of courage and sacrifice to do that work day in and day out. One of the ways that our staff make sacrifices is in the compensation they receive. And that's not true just here. It's a challenge across the country. There was a survey completed recently of the homeless services workforce by an organization called the National Alliance to End Homelessness. And that survey showed that 44% of homeless services workers worry about paying for housing. They worry about paying for housing. And that hurts. That is a gut punch. This comes straight from that survey. The homeless services workforce should be appreciated for their mission-driven dedication to their work. However, they also desperately need additional resources and other policy and practice supports to ensure their continued work can meet the needs of all people experiencing homelessness. So I think we can do better. Like, we in the Fox Cities are pretty proud of how well we meet needs here. And I know we need to do better to turn the tide on what is a nationwide and a local problem, and what is overwhelming turnover for our organization. Annualized turnover here at Pillars has again reached about 75% organization-wide. And I know that better compensation and steady, consistent efforts at engagement and at training are vital. They're essential to kind of turn that tide. We are really working to develop the financial resources to support both better compensation and more solid training and engagement. So all of this to say that we got a lot of work to do. We're really focused on stabilizing our finances, stabilizing our team, growing our fundraising capacity. We is bigger than Pillars. We is all of us. And I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you tuning in to hear about how things are going for us, how things have gone, what we're looking ahead to. I really see every single one of you here as the creative, compassionate folks that we need to think together and work together to ensure that everybody has a place to call home. Now I'm going to sip my coffee and see where Stephanie takes us next.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm sure that many of you have a lot of questions or responses to Lisa's remarks. I'm going to ask you to pause just a second. I'd like to invite Matt Malm to talk for a couple minutes first, and he is going to talk about our annual award recipients. So Matt, turning it over to you.
Thanks, Stephanie. So another thing that always happens at Report to the Community that's always really exciting is we announce our Community Partner of the Year and Volunteer of the Year. It's a nice time to kind of step back and reflect on the year and not just our accomplishments, but how we got there. And our community partner and our volunteers are certainly a pretty big factor in the successes that we share. So for this year's Community Partner of the Year, the City of Appleton was selected to receive that award. Over the last few years, they've been great partners in our work. They share the responsibility of addressing homelessness and housing insecurity for our community. They've really stepped up and taken ownership of some grant administration and making sure that the partners in our community have the funding that they need. They stepped up and provided funding for our 7-day service and winter shelter overflow, as Lisa mentioned earlier. They coordinate a housing hub where people are prioritized for housing, and housing services can reach out to access that list and pull people to match with different programming. So for their great partnership and collaboration, we selected the city as our partner of the year. We were fortunate to have the mayor and a lot of the staff on site at the Report to the Community, which was really great. So we got to hear some kind words from them. We also had a lot of great media coverage. So if you're interested to hear a little bit from the mayor, you can hop online and check out some of those news reports as well. They had some nice interviews from the mayor. For our Volunteer of the Year award, we actually selected a group of volunteers. So this was a little bit of a unique situation. We rely on volunteers throughout the year to help with general operations, so staffing the front desk, serving meals, preparing meals, lots of different things like that. We have over 1,000 volunteers who contribute 17,000 hours each year. As Lisa mentioned, that's equivalent to about 8 full-time staff members. Last summer, we had our volunteer manager who had some planned extended leave. In preparing for that leave, we were looking at different ways to manage the volunteer program and keep operations going. And we leaned on these 8 individuals to pick up the responsibility of managing that program. So the individuals shown on screen here, some of them are joining us this morning. So if you're here, welcome, thank you, congratulations. Those volunteers stepped up and did data reporting, volunteer onboarding, training, scheduling, staffing, all the things that you can imagine go into coordinating over 1,000 volunteers, and they did that on top of their regular volunteer shifts that they were picking up at the front desk, serving meals, preparing meals, and helping out in the office. So for their valiant efforts and contributions to our operations over a 3-month span last year, we selected this group of individuals as our volunteers of the year.
Thank you, Matt. Now I'm going to open up the floor to all of you and ask what questions or comments do you have? For those of you who are with us last week, is there anything that anyone said at Report to Community that just stuck with you that you'd like to highlight right now, or any lingering questions that you've had? What do you guys have to say? So I'm going to stop my screen because I can't see any pictures while I'm doing that. But you can unmute and talk, or you can ask in the chat. Got some quiet people. For our volunteers that are here that won, would any of you guys like to say anything about your volunteer service? I know we got a couple of you. All right, Jenny asks, what was your largest challenge in 2023? So Lisa, I'm going to throw that one to you.
Yeah, for me personally, it's hard to, it's two things really. It's the paired challenge of staff turnover and the struggle with our deficit, and having, as a result of those two things happening in tandem, having fewer levers and options to pull than I would have preferred to. That was probably the toughest thing, because backing off on service, not an option, just not an option. So that's how I would respond to that, Jenny.
And another question from the chat, also from Jenny. What do you see as your largest challenge moving forward?
What I'm really focused on, what we as a leadership team, an extended leadership team, are really focused on is staff engagement. So compensation is a factor, certainly, in turnover. It's not the only factor. And so we're really committed to making sure that our team knows how much they're valued, making sure that we're listening to our team and responding to our team to make their experience here as solid as it can be. As an organization that is as compassionate and is filled with people who are compassionate as Pillars is, one of our struggles is, this is going to sound strange and I hope it doesn't come off the wrong way, one of our struggles is a real pour it all out, give it all away to the clients and the tenants and the program participants. And that can lead to burnout. So we want to make sure that we're taking good care of our team and that our team feels that and knows that. So that's, I have sort of, the deficit is still there and we are working and we have a plan and we're addressing it. But I'm sort of keeping it in my peripheral vision now. I'm tempted to make an analogy with the eclipse, but I can't do it quick enough on my feet. Can't look straight at it, right? You can't look straight at it or it'll burn your eyeballs out. But we're keeping it in our peripheral vision, and we're really, really focused on our team and taking good care of them in the year ahead.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Our next question I think I can handle, but my teammates who are sitting right next to me will correct me if I'm wrong. So what is the shelter capacity for the adult and the adult and family shelter? Our adult shelter has 55 beds a night, which most of those are actually bunk beds, although they do have a couple mats on the floor for people waiting to get into the bunk beds. So it really is taking every bit of floor space that we have and putting it towards getting people into that safe environment on the overnight. The adult and the family shelter has a capacity of 80. That does vary a little bit because some of those are in family rooms. And so we do try to match families to the best size room. There are a different number of beds in each of those rooms. But sometimes there might be an extra bunk in that room that we just have to move that family in. So it might be a 3-bedroom and it's a 2-person family. And or we might be able to fit an extra person in to one of those rooms with a cot, or for our littles, pack and plays that serve as cribs. So it does vary a little bit depending upon the like size of the families that are in the individual rooms. But it's 80 beds per night there. All right, so I think I got those right. Oh, all my questions went away for a second. All right. And then the next question, how much of an impact do you think that the library not being downtown is increasing the visitors to the resource center? And will the construction of the new library, when it is complete, do you think that will help alleviate some of the burden at Pillars? So Lisa, I know you talked about this one last week, so I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah, no problem. There definitely is an impact. The library, when you think about it, a public library, there was a book written not too long ago, and I'm forgetting the title and I'm forgetting the author, but it was called Palaces for the People. And libraries really are warm and welcoming spaces where you can spend time for free. You know, you can spend time without spending money, and those kinds of spaces are rare. And the resource center is one of them, and the public library is one of them. And with the public library having relocated temporarily out of the downtown area, we do think that that's been a factor in increased utilization of the resource center. Increasing figures around homelessness and unsheltered homelessness in particular, also a factor. So it's because those two things are happening concurrently, it's a little hard to sort exactly what to attribute to which of those forces. What I can say is that our public library is a great partner. They understand their role in providing service, providing care. You know, they have social workers on staff, participate in the Housing Coalition, participate in monthly conversations with Pillars, other service providers. So they're a great partner to us, and we value that partnership. Certainly has had an impact, though.
All right, next question. So, two came in at once. So let's get this one. Caring for the neediest is a priority of many faith communities. Can we ask church leaders to support and promote action from churches as a vital part of their mission? Lisa, I know you referred to this briefly. Do you want to elaborate on our inviting those faith communities into being a part of that compassionate, caring community?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for the question, Kathleen. And I know Kathleen and I have crossed paths through Esther and through faith communities as well. So she and I both get this. Faith communities are stepping up. I think that the challenge faith communities grapple with, and I'm a member of First Presbyterian Church in Neenah, and I know, you know, we are the same in this regard. We often feel like we need to do this work on our own, and I think what's been interesting over the last year is seeing a group of 6 Catholic parishes come together, and it might even be a bigger group than 6 by now. I don't know exactly. So if someone on the conversation does know and wants to say more about it, we'd be happy to yield the floor to you and welcome you to comment on that. But there are parishes, particularly those in the downtown Appleton area, who receive a lot of folks at their churches asking for help, who want to know how to help. So we've been working to equip faith communities with a referral guide that can help them ask the right questions to point folks in the right direction for the right services. Our partners at the City of Appleton have put together a resource guide. Liz Crowley, who's our coordinated entry specialist there, has a really great list of resources that faith communities can, it's that idea of singing off the same song sheet that faith communities can share out. I don't know if any of our team have at their fingertips the link or the QR code that directs people to Liz's list of resources, but what we're trying to do, Kathleen, in the work of equipping faith communities is provide tools to help faith communities respond in line with each other collectively, right? So that faith communities don't feel like they have to do the work on their own for whatever individual walks in the door, but rather that they're part of the system of care. I don't know if I'm getting at the answer to your question. It's through COVID, I think it's been difficult because, you know, faith communities went virtual, many of them for a spell. We went virtual. Some of our volunteer groups who served dinner discontinued service. Many have come back, but not all, who serve dinner at our shelters. So it's been an interesting time to try to mobilize and bring folks together to work collaboratively. And I think that's always a challenge with faith communities, each of whom has their own identity and their own desire to do good and to do right by the folks that they see aligned with their mission, to get them to come together and do that work together, which I think will make it more effective. So sort of talked around it, but I appreciate the question because I think just asking the question makes people think differently.
I like the word collaboration, and we also have money, and we can regularly support pillars, maybe.
Yeah, and we do get a lot of support from faith communities, certainly financial, volunteer support, engagement, all of the above. Interesting work happening at
The Green Bay Diocese. We need to work with them. Demand support.
Thank you.
So it looks like we are not finding the link right now to the coordinated entry page, but I will send out an email thanking you all with a link to this recording later. And I will include that link in that email so that you guys can see the City of Appleton's coordinated entry page. Lisa also mentioned a resource, like a referral guide. We do have a pretty basic flow chart. So if you do have someone who is experiencing homelessness come to you at your faith community or other place of employment, and you're like, I don't know what to tell them, we do have that sheet is available as well. If you think that's something that would be useful for you and you don't have a copy already, please reach out to us again, either respond to my emails or eventpillarsinc.org, and we will make sure that you get copies of those as well.
Stephanie, we have a hand raised. I think it's another Stephanie.
Yes, multiple Stephanies. Good morning. Thank you for putting this presentation together and just the conversation. And I appreciate the openness and just directness of the challenges that you're having and building that into your goals and into understanding the picture in our community and how the challenges came about. So I applaud you living out your values and just connecting the challenges you're facing to the challenges that we're having in our community and bringing that ownership to us all. I have a question around kind of getting to some of the systems parts of the work around housing. If you were to prioritize or look for opportunities to address, rent increases and people being able to stay in their homes, where do you see some of that opportunity for folks to join alongside you in the work that you're doing to address the bigger community issues that we have in our community? Because you're responding to the need, and how do we build a community together that is supporting families and households? So
yeah,
just a question at the end of the
it's a great question. I think collective effort is one way. So I talked a little bit about that with regard to faith communities, but having, we have a Fox Cities Housing Coalition, and that's a lot of nonprofit service providers, but it's bigger than that. So collective effort that involves developers, that involves the business community, that involves employers, really recognizing housing as a need. Housing is the need, right? That's the need that makes people homeless. I think too, boy, I lost my train of thought. Where was I going next? One of the barriers to people getting housing is, like, if they come with government support, either in the form of housing choice voucher, formerly known as Section 8, commonly known as Section 8 voucher, or if they come with a government subsidy through one of our housing programs, there's stigma attached to that. So, I've heard of interesting programs. I think Philadelphia maybe is piloting a program where they basically just give people cash instead of a voucher. It's a government program, it's a pilot. And then that stigma's not there, right? It's money. They've got money to spend with the landlord, and they can spend it. So lots of interesting experiments going on, which means that it's not just us who's struggling with the answer to that question, but it's people all across the country, and things are being tried in different pockets. So I think also, in addition to working collectively here, being attentive to what's happening elsewhere is important too.
All right. I hate to be, the music at the Oscars saying that we have to go, but it is 8:30, and I do want to respect time. We'll stay on the call for a couple other minutes. I know we have one other question that we can address, but just to respect everyone's time, please make sure that you stay connected with us with this conversation. We have, again, the YouTube page that has a lot of videos, including all of our past conversations over coffee. Conversations over coffee happens the first Thursday of all even-numbered months, with the exception of December. So our next one will be Thursday, June 6th. Again, from 7:30 to 8:30. We hope you can join us. We have a lot of other ways that you can connect with us: Facebook, Instagram, things like that. So make sure you do that. And thank you for coming. If you do need to leave, feel free to sign off at this time. Otherwise, we'll stay on for a couple more minutes and address those last couple questions that we have. All right.
Stephanie, the question that I think you're referring to, it was, do you get student groups wanting to do service projects, Boy Scouts wanting Eagle Scout projects, college, tech, student groups, youth groups, etc.?
All right, and this would be a perfect one for our volunteer manager, but unfortunately we are in a position where we are between volunteer managers at this time. So I'll do my best to answer in lieu of one. Yes, we do actually get several of those groups. Some of them volunteer for us on a routine basis, especially with things like preparing and serving meals. Others do it just here and there, and we do try to accommodate that as well. So if you are interested, feel free to reach out. We do not always have special service projects, especially with youth. It can be a little tricky because we do have to restrict which sites that they are there, just for the safety, security of everyone involved, both our clients as well as the youth, making sure that we're hitting all those legal barriers that some of our clients have had some legal challenges in the past. We want to make sure that everyone knows where they'll be safe and accepted and welcomed. So we can't always accommodate it every time, but it's always worth asking, because we can accommodate it some of the time. And like, especially in the spring and the fall, some of the yard work they do to help our sites remain beautiful, or helping out with our stable housing programs in terms of sprucing up some of those apartments, those help as well. But again, feeding our clients in shelter is one of the biggest needs. So often it is going to be preparing or serving meals. All right. Alana,
Hey,
do we see any other questions? Yeah.
Can I just throw out a quick little comment, a fun little experience? So Freedom High School is one of the student groups that's been, I think, plugged in here for a really long time. And I have a classmate in a course I'm taking right now who is probably in his 30s, who said that, oh, he remembered working with Pillars back when he was a student at Freedom High School. And I mean, that's been going on for a long time. So yeah, it's great stuff.
And we do have some of those students who come back to be full-time adult volunteers as well. I just saw a request come through for someone who volunteered through high school, and now she's a college student, and she's like, so come volunteer just in the summers when I'm back home again? Like, absolutely, we'd love to have you back. Alana, did you see any more questions in the chat?
Nope, I think we've covered them all so far.
All right, so any remaining questions from people that are still on the call? Great, then thank you guys all for coming today. Thank you for staying those couple extra minutes. Sorry we went over and took a few extra minutes of your morning, but we do appreciate the time that you gave to us.
Thank you, everyone.